Welcome back, guys. I trust you've been staying safe. Now, for some time now, Vince McMahon is trending for all the wrong reasons, and largely because of this particular woman by name Janel Grant. I'm sure you've heard the story. If you are not familiar with it, just pause this video and go to my playlist. You'll see the video there detailing all the reasons why Vince McMahon of the WWE is in so much hot waters at the hands of a lawsuit filed against him by Janel Grant. I don't know about you, but I've been watching WWE for a number of years now, but strangely enough, I never knew about Janel Grant. So I was wondering, who is Janel Grant in the first place? And I'm sure you are also wondering, apart from the lawsuit, or prior to the lawsuit, there wasn't much to know about this lady. Now, I've done some research on who Janel Grant is, and I bet you by the time you are done finding out who she is, getting to know more about her and her background, you would begin to understand why she has such a fight in her, which, of course, seems to be the fuel that is pushing this lawsuit forward and putting Mr. Vince McMahon of the WWE in so much hot waters. So, of course, the introduction begs the question, who is Janel Grant? Well, Janel Grant is a 44-year-old American who was born in Connecticut, and she has been in Connecticut for the best parts of her life. At the onset of her early years, she had a very difficult childhood. She faced a lot of adversity in her early life, and this was culminated with the early loss of both parents of hers. So you can see that Janel Grant didn't have things easy. And she actually had to take some time off work just so she could dedicate her full time to taking care of her parents who were not feeling so good. She did this until, unfortunately, they passed. And their passing made things even worse for her because she had to deal with the pain of that loss, coupled with the fact that she now had to pick her life up and put it together and also move on as a person. However, in 2019, her fortunes changed when she connected with Vince McMahon of the WWE through his assistants. Vince McMahon was impressed by the capabilities of Janel Grant when they met, and by virtue of that, he pledged that he was going to assist her by letting her join WWE and help her build a career in that company. As a result of this, Janel Grant then started her career at WWE, initially working in the legal and talent departments. So this is the origin story as to how Janel Grant came to end up in the WWE. And it didn't even end there. It took a different turn altogether because when she ended up in the WWE, Vince McMahon also then transferred her to XFL. In case you are not familiar with it, XFL is a football league founded by Vince McMahon. And it was during this period that Janel Grant started facing very, very unfortunate, intimate breaches from Vince McMahon. Because according to my research and what she has actually detailed in her lawsuit, it was during this period that she alleges her relationship with Vince McMahon of the WWE became intimate, accompanied by disturbing incidents of coercive behavior from Vince McMahon towards her. Now, I've already said in my previous video on the whole lawsuit that per what the law says, Vince McMahon is actually innocent until proven guilty. Although per the explicit details of the lawsuit, it makes you see him in a different light. I'm doing my best not to do so because that would be me prejudging him. But that aside, it still also doesn't mean that we can just ignore what Janel Grant is saying. So although I'm on the fence, I'm analyzing this from both sides. That is, if it turns out it's true, then Vince McMahon has done the worst to this lady. If it turns out it's false, then Janel Grant also has done the worst to Vince McMahon. What do you think it is? Who do you think is telling the truth? Let's know in the comment section. But as per what I did in my research, this is how Janel Grant came to end up in the WWE, and according to her, from 2019, how she also started getting intimate with Vince McMahon. Now, someone would say, but didn't she agree willingly? Well, it turns out she didn't, because she is claiming that he forced her into it. And if you look at the power dynamics between Vince McMahon, the powerful wrestling demigod, and Janel Grant, a young lady who is now trying to pick herself up after the loss of her parents, you begin to see who is in a better position to influence whom. If this is true, then it means that it was more likely that Vince McMahon was in a better position to influence Janel Grant. And that sets the ball rolling for everything that we are seeing in the lawsuit filed against Vince McMahon by Janel Grant. Bear in mind that in that lawsuit, it's not just against Vince McMahon, but a bit of it also makes WWE in itself a defendant. Not to talk about John Laurinaitis also as a defendant. I'm going to put up a whole episode on John Laurinaitis. You find out who he is, his history, his background. And I'm going to put up another one telling you how John Laurinaitis seems to seemingly be trying to throw Mr. McMahon under the bus by claiming he is also a victim. Well, he didn't claim it directly, his lawyer did. But that is a story for another video. So back to Janel Grant. This was how she ended up in the clutches of Vince McMahon, according to her own testimony. And the rest is history, because now lawsuit has been filed and the federal prosecutors are investigating Vince McMahon. Now, Janel Grant's net worth is somewhere between $2 million. And she does a lot, actually. Janel Grant does so much as a person. She's 44 years old. And you can see that she's trying to put her life together and move on after all these things that she allegedly suffered at the hands of Vince McMahon. That is not to say that she's letting it go. I think as part of her moving on, it has culminated in her gathering up the strength to file this lawsuit and see it through. And I'm sure that if it's true, then when she finishes going through this, she would have the load off of her and she can move on and continue to build her life. She's actually been doing a lot of advocacy beyond the ring. Janel Grant's journey has evolved into not just a legal battle, but a platform for advocacy against sexual misconduct. And I'm all for this. That is one thing personally I detest so much. That the fact that there are some men in some organizations who feel that by virtue of they being men in themselves and a woman being a woman or a female in herself, finding themselves together in an organization gives them the audacity, the authority, and the privilege to just misconduct themselves around these women in a sexual manner. Personally, I detest it so much. I think that it is animalistic and is so uncalled for, to the point I'm expecting organizations to call such men to order by putting in stringent policies on how these things should be handled at the workplace, such that people who fall foul should be dealt with harshly to serve as a deterrent to other men. I know there are some rare situations where some women are the perpetrators, but largely this is coming from men towards the female employees. Sometimes it's coming from a position of power where the power dynamics are swayed against the woman, and you find a man who has a position of authority in an organization trying to use it to coerce a woman into an intimate relationship, sometimes even against her will, by using threats and subtle appraisal issues aimed at destroying or tarnishing her career just so he can have his way with her. I detest that so much. I detest that so much. Let me know what you think about these things. Wherever you are watching from the world, are you facing some of these things as a woman? Have you faced it before? Or do you know someone who have faced it? What are your laws and how are they protecting women in the workplace as far as these kind of animalistic behaviors from some men are concerned? Let's know in the comment section. I'll really appreciate that, because I think that it's past time these things are brought to an end. And what really hurts me so much is when they are doing this, when some men in some organizations are doing this, some of the time you would find that some women are even helping them to do it against their fellow women because they are benefiting from this man. And I think it's very unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. And I commend Janel Grant for gathering up the courage to do this, because if it turns out that she has a case and she's telling the truth and she's successful, it's probably going to open up the floodgates for other women to come out. Already, she's not the first to level such an accusation against Vince McMahon. There have already been 4 other women prior to her coming out. Just that, comparatively, I think Janel Grant's details per her experience with Vince McMahon are more explicit than those of the other 4 women. And I think that no matter how powerful you are as a man or any person, you have no right to try to use that power to coerce any gender to be intimate with you just so they can continue to work in your institution and have some money to fend for themselves and their loved ones. I think that is outright tyranny and should be nipped in the bud by organizations, policies, and also the law in itself. So I'm happy that the federal state has come in and they are investigating. I'm on the fence, like I said. I'm waiting to see how it plays out. If it turns out McMahon is guilty when it goes to court, well, it is what it is. It turns out it's the other way around. It also is what it is. But even if it turns out Janel Grant is not telling the truth, she's an exception to it, but there are still some women out there facing these things. And what do you think? If it turns out she's telling the truth, do you think there are going to be more women coming out? Well, for me, if it turns out she's telling the truth, I am thinking there will be more women coming out. Because if she's telling the truth, then there's a higher probability there are other victims like her who are too afraid to come out because of the power of the man they would have to accuse. So, this is Janel Grant, and this is what she's achieved for herself. As it stands now, in 2024, Janel Grant is Vince McMahon's nightmare. His worst nightmare is Janel Grant. And I'm sure when he closes his eye to sleep, he sees her in his dreams, in which case it will turn to a nightmare. On the flip side, however, this is not the first time we are hearing this. Just getting to the end of 2023, we had a similar allegation being brought out in a lawsuit by Cassandra against Sean Combs or Sean Puffy Combs or PDD. And some way, somehow, they settled it out of court. And the case just died. I'm hoping that this is not going to be one of those. Honestly, I'm hoping it's not going to be one of those. Although a part of me is telling me she might settle out of court with Vince McMahon if the money is good. If she does that, I'm not going to be surprised because, mind you, she has already engaged in the signing of an NDA for $3 million. She only came out because they didn't finish paying the money and they stopped. So if they had finished, maybe we wouldn't be hearing all this. So imagine they bring a larger sum and offer it to her to just quash the case. She might do it. I don't know. But even if she does it, can the state also decide that they themselves are going to take up the case and investigate Vince McMahon to see if he's guilty? We have interesting days ahead. Let's see how these things will unfold. And I'm following closely. You know I'm going to bring you updates as and when they are due, right? You bet I will. Subscribe if you are yet to do so. Hit the notification button. Hit the like button. What do you think about Janel Grant as a person? What do you think about this whole case between herself and Vince McMahon? And do you think it's going to be settled out of court eventually, like I'm suspecting? If yes, why? If no, why? Let's have a dialogue. I'll catch you on the next one. Stay safe out there.